Okay, why haven't I been using this? Why was this at the bottom of my drawer? This needs to be something I use more. The way that this foundation is not even starting to crease or crack in my expression lines. Today I'm doing my makeup with products that I've dug out from the bottom of my makeup drawer. They were forgotten, they were cast aside for whatever was newer and shinier at the moment, but did they really deserve that? Let's find out. I'm in the beginning stages of decluttering my makeup collection. A couple videos ago, I showed you what survived the first drawer of decluttering. But during this process, I'm definitely rediscovering products that I haven't used in forever, but remember liking. So I wanted to play around with them and see if they deserve their spot back in my makeup routine now. And I do have a mix of drugstore and high-end products today. The first forgotten makeup item I will be retesting today, I honestly do not even remember when or why I got this, the Smashbox Original Photo Finish Primer. This is like one of the first makeup primers I remember trying ever, but at this point in time, I feel like it's just kind of run-of-the-mill, like it's just a clear silicone primer. But let's put it on my face. Maybe my mind will be reblown. I feel like I wore this a bit in college, around that time where beauty YouTube was just starting to boom. But I quickly ended up switching to the Maybelline Baby Skin Primer, which at the time was kind of like the closest thing to a dupe at the drugstore. I mean, I will say this is very silky, but I think it's $35. For $35, I just don't think it's as revolutionary as it once was when it first came out. Now, the product that I found at the bottom of my foundation drawer may surprise you because it used to be my holy grail, my go-to, nothing else compared, and that is the L'Oreal Infallible Fresh Wear. Now, this is the first bottle that I ever bought in the new formulation because it used to be the 24-hour Fresh Wear. They updated it to 32 hours. Why? Who asked for this? Not me. I'm not wearing my makeup for 32 hours, but also they added a vitamin C derivative to this formula, and this foundation is now between $14 and $19, depending on where you buy it. At Ulta, it leans more toward the $19 range, which is absolutely insane, but also kind of to be expected at this point from L'Oreal. But at least this comes with 1 fluid ounce versus the L'Oreal Skin Ink, which I reviewed in my last video, which is $19 for half an ounce. Now, this was my favorite liquid foundation, period, whether drugstore or high-end. I actually often wore it without primer at all. I just felt like it lasted forever, smoothed out my pores with a natural finish. But I've just been leaning away from full coverage foundations lately and opting for a lot lighter formulas. And also, for some reason with L'Oreal foundations, I have a really hard time finding my color match besides their True Match line. That one I actually do have an almost perfect color match for myself. In the Infallible line, I've always kind of danced around about 3 different shades. This one is Ivory Buff, 430. It might be a little bit light for my summer shade. So this is 1 layer of coverage. We're definitely at medium full, and it really is just looking so smooth and nice. You know, it's funny because as a beauty community and as beauty trends change, we've moved so far away from like the 2016 and 17 full face beat that was kind of the everyday norm for a lot of makeup lovers. But sometimes when I return to my favorite products of that era, like this one, even though it's the reformulated version, whatever, I'm surprised at how much I still like the look. And honestly, for a full coverage foundation, this is on the lighter side. It really doesn't feel heavy or mask-like, and especially because you really can get away with wearing this without primer to just minimize how many layers you're wearing. Personally, I'm not noticing a huge difference between this formula and like what I remember of the old formula. I feel like it's not oxidizing or drying down as warm as the old formula did, because that was one of the main issues why I couldn't find my shade all the time, is because what the bottle looked like and what first came out of the pump was not what ended up on your face throughout the day. I mean, I know we still have a little bit of time, but this is already looking like it's maintaining the shade better. And I just love this semi-matte finish because it looks so natural and it looks like you just have radiant skin. It's not dewy, it's not matte. Like, this is my ideal natural finish. Okay, why haven't I been using this? Why was this at the bottom of my drawer? I think lately I've just been doing a lot of quick makeup and even using concealer as my foundation or using foundation sticks because they're just so easy to swipe on and go. But I don't know, this might make its way back into my regular rotation. I have a lot of plans coming up where I am going to be wearing a little bit of a fuller face and needing it to last. This foundation might have a comeback in my routine. Okay, this is not really part of the video, but just kind of an update on a rediscovered favorite. I have started to use the Benefit Precisely my brow pencil again regularly. This is my absolute favorite brow pencil ever. And typically it's on sale during like Sephora sales or Ulta 21 Days of Beauty. And that's when I stock up. And this is like the standard where I try to dupe this when I look for drugstore brow pencils. And I've found some that come close, like the L'Oreal Brow Stylist is very close and the NYX Micro Brow Pencil is very close. But at the end of the day, there's something about this formula that just kind of beats both of them. Like it's never crumbly. It lasts so well, even if I'm sweating. It blends beautifully. And the color, which is 6, is this like soft black that doesn't look so stark against my skin tone because my hair is such a dark brown. It is technically brown. I used to dye it black, but this is my natural brown. But brown pencils always look too warm on me. So this wasn't necessarily rediscovered. It's just that I decided to have a little bit of a bougie brow moment and not use the drugstore dupes and actually use my favorite. Before moving on to eyeshadow, I'm priming my eyes with the Profusion Pigment Base. This is another product where every time I use it, I'm surprised all over again. Honestly, I think that it falls to the bottom of my drawer because I have this sort of like travel size version that came in a holiday makeup kit. So it's so tiny. Digging through my drawers, I found an eyeshadow palette that has been super neglected over the years, but I remember loving these palettes, the CoverGirl TruNaked palettes. This is in the one Desert Heat. You may have seen me use the smoky palette version of the TruNaked shadows, and that one is a really great, like cool toned smoky palette at the drugstore. These are only about $10. And I always thought that they were underrated. Like even when they first came out, not a lot of people were talking about them. I think as a whole, I've just not been using a lot of eyeshadow palettes lately, though I do prefer mini palettes like these or even quads nowadays. So I can see myself maybe incorporating this into my routine again. So the Desert Heat color story is definitely warm leaning. We have some warm browns, golds, and rosy shades. I'm gonna go into this kind of camel shade and use that as my transition crease color. Yeah, like a few years ago, it just seemed like the only shades we were getting and the only themes we were getting in eyeshadow were warm neutrals. And I just got so tired of it. And then in general, I feel like we've had this sort of shift in everyday eye makeup where, you know, back in the day, back when these came out, I was doing a full eye look every single day. Not so much anymore. Now I really do lean more into a halo eye where I'm just putting on 2 shades or even just one all over lid shade. And so for those types of looks, I'm not really reaching for palettes, or palettes aren't necessarily the smartest buy for my regular routine. Next, I'm gonna go into this medium brown shade. I just never thought that CoverGirl got enough kudos for this eyeshadow formula because it is so soft and silky and blendable. And as a reminder, CoverGirl did go cruelty-free back in like 2017, I want to say. Funny enough, I also think that at the time that these palettes were released, they were like a little bit expensive for the drugstore because they are like between $10 and $12. But now that's nothing because they haven't raised the price, which is awesome. At the time I was like, well, the quality really speaks to why these are priced that way because they really are nice shadows. And now I'm like, no, these are a steal. I think I want to use the gold on the lid. I haven't done a good gold eyeshadow look in a while, and I am going to apply this with my fingers. It's kind of like a bronzy gold and just so soft. This is definitely going to be a product that I'm going to struggle with when it comes to my eyeshadow drawer declutter, and let me know if you want to see a video of that because I definitely need to do it. I have 2 drawers of eyeshadows. I have like single shadows and shadow sticks, and then I have mini palettes in there as well, and then I have larger palettes and some more mini palettes in a different drawer. And I really do feel like the palettes are going to be really hard for me because I just haven't been using them. But then when I dip into them or I swatch them, I'm like, oh, it's so pretty. Oh, I'll definitely use these. And it's just like not happening in my everyday life. Like when I'm not filming. I want to know though, in the comments, tell me, are you still using like multi-shade palettes, whether they're kind of mini like this or even the big ColourPop palettes, or are you leaning more toward single shadows and shadow sticks? Gonna dip into this highlight shade and put that under the brow. I don't know if this highlight shade actually quite matches the rest of the palette. It's very cool toned. My trick for this though is blending over it with the brush that I used to blend out the brown. So it kind of warms it up a bit. I'm gonna go into this darkest brown. I wanna try to use that as a powder liner. Just add a bit of definition to the corners. I've definitely been preferring the powder liner look lately and just kind of softening it up. So pretty, especially moving into fall, this sort of warm bronzy vibe. Yeah, I think if you're still a palette person, don't sleep on these Covergirl TruNaked palettes, especially for the price now in 2025. Definitely a great way to just add a new color story to your collection. Now, in a recent video where I tested old viral makeup to see if it still held up in 2025, I rediscovered how much I liked the Maybelline Sky High mascara, and since then I've been using it a ton. So the verdict on this one is very much does not deserve to be forgotten. In fact, this might become my go-to mascara again, and I'll tell you why. I feel like with this mascara, the only reason I moved on from it was because being a content creator, I was just kind of testing whatever the newest innovative mascara was. And in doing so, I forgot how much of a match this formula is for my short and straight lashes. Because with some of the more recent mascara launches, whether it be tubing mascaras or just, you know, whatever the new viral one is, a lot of them do great things for my length, but they totally flatten out my curl. And because I already have straight lashes, when I start losing my curl, I start losing the perception of length. And so I always find myself like over crimping my lashes. In fact, it's kind of a habit. I sort of did it today because I'm trying to overcompensate for these heavier formulas that seem to be really standard right now. This is working so much better for my lashes than like my current go-tos. I wrongfully considered it like a dated choice. I was like, no, we've all moved on from that, right? No, we don't have to. We don't have to move on from it. And I mean, some of you may have noticed that that's kind of a theme that I've been working into my content lately. Rediscovering old favorites, using what you already have, dispelling the myth that newer is always better, because I just feel like that's the part of this industry as a beauty creator that I am feeling the most disconnected with. And that's definitely difficult because, you know, sharing new products is inherently part of this job. But I don't know, it doesn't resonate with me to always be telling you like, this mascara is awesome, go buy it, it's gonna be your new favorite. And then the next week there's a new mascara, this mascara is awesome, run and go buy it. But that's just me. As I'm sitting here like looking at my makeup progress, I am flabbergasted at how good my skin looks. I mean, this combo, unstoppable. Y'all know that I have a lot of skin texture. I've dealt with acne for the majority of my life that's finally clearing up, but I was left with a lot of scarring, and you know, different foundation formulas definitely give me varying results of whether or not those stand out through my makeup. And this is just looking so smooth. It is definitely a heavier look than I have been wearing lately. Like it doesn't feel heavy like I mentioned, but it does look heavier. It looks like I'm wearing a full face of makeup. This is just definitely not clean girl, if that makes sense. Okay, moving on. This is a bronzer that I purchased, I think for my $50 makeup challenge. Did that a couple years ago to see if it was even still possible, and it was, especially with products like this. This is the Rimmel Natural Bronzer Waterproof Bronzing Powder. This is like $4 at Walmart. I have had a lot of people mentioning different Rimmel products in my comments lately, and I will say though, it's been increasingly difficult to find Rimmel in stores for me, and maybe just in the US in general. I'm not sure. Let me know about how it is in your neck of the woods. But here in Vegas, I feel like really the only place I can find them is Walmart, and they have a very small section. Super, super limited. By the way, this comically large brush is from AOA Studios or shopmissa.com. It's their F11 brush. I really like it for just dusting on bronzer, it blends so nicely. And it's perfect to kind of sweep across the forehead like this. I think it might have come in a brush set, but I will link it in the description if I can find it. But hello, what shade is this? Sun Bronze. This is like my perfect natural looking bronzer shade. It is not orange at all. It's just the right amount of pigmented where it's blending into my makeup really nicely. It doesn't look harsh, but it is absolutely buildable if I want to add more. This needs to be something I use more. The one thing that I don't like, and maybe one of the reasons why I end up not grabbing it, this packaging sucks. But I mean, it's a $4 bronzer, but there's really nothing keeping this plastic cap on. So definitely not something that I would travel with, unfortunately. Like, even if it just snapped a little bit, that would help. Rimmel, can you like redo this into a clamshell compact? Because this is a great bronzer. I really did forget how nice this shade is for me. And y'all hear me complain about bronzers and contours so much on this channel. So I need to appreciate when I have a good thing and use this. Okay, I mentioned this blush in my recent declutter video, which was actually what survived my blush declutter, and this blush obviously survived, but it was also a rediscovery because this is the Rare Beauty Melting Blush. And this was, I feel like, Selena's first makeup item to go viral with Rare Beauty, but very soon after, her Soft Pinch Liquid Blush was released, and that became just way more popular, and then I never heard anybody talking about this again. Even myself, I have definitely been leaning more toward liquid formulas or even stick formulas, and that has had an impact on how much I actually use this. This is in the shade Nearly Neutral, and I do feel like stamping on with your fingers is the best for this formula because of how sheer it is. I don't really like using a sponge because that'll make it even more sheer, but it is sort of a cream to powder formula, which again, I think is why a lot of people prefer the liquid, just because more dewy skin is in style right now. But I just really love the soft focus diffused look that this gives. It sort of leans into the cloud skin makeup trend, if you've ever heard of that. It's like, instead of glass skin, which is all about being like dewy and reflective and shiny, cloud skin is more like naturally radiant and almost like filtered in real life. And that's the look that this gives. This did survive my declutter because I want to use it more. And frankly, I feel like it deserves more hype than it's gotten in recent years. So recently brought this one from the bottom of the drawer to the top, so hoping that I will get more use out of it for sure. Now, I haven't really been using powder highlights a lot recently. I have been preferring how cream formulas look on me most, and then right under that, liquid formulas. But I do really remember liking this Revolution highlighter Reloaded in Raise the Bar. It's sort of a golden champagne, and I would say it's like a baked formula. You can kind of see that baked texture here. I just don't remember if it's very shimmery or not, because that's the thing with powder highlighters, is that a lot of them rely on shimmer versus pigment. And I feel like you just end up with a more natural glow with cream formulas. Okay. I mean, there's shimmer in it, but that's not the main glow factor. Like, it doesn't look glittery, which I like. I have been using their blusher Reloaded for a while. That's probably one of my most used powder blushes. Yeah, that's nice. And it doesn't seem to really be accentuating my texture too much. You know, as much as I kind of wrote off that Smashbox primer at the beginning of the video and saying that it was kind of just a run-of-the-mill silicone primer that's not as impressive as it was back then, all of my makeup is layering really smoothly today. I mean, that plus the Infallible foundation, which is silicone based as well, I am feeling airbrushed. It would be interesting to test it side by side with a drugstore option that's very similar now, because it is kind of the most duped primer, in my opinion. Because I haven't really used the Maybelline one that I had mentioned in a while. And you know what I'm noticing the most with this primer underneath my foundation is that my foundation isn't showing any signs right now of creasing in my expression lines or even under my eyes. And I feel like with other blurring primers, that's not something that's a given. This is making a case for itself in terms of standing out among other primers in my collection. This last product that I pulled from the back of my drawers, I'm very excited to test out again because I've been kind of struggling with lip liners lately. I feel like brands keep putting out these formulas that are very creamy, so they're really nice and blendable, which is great, but they don't tend to stay on as well as a little bit of a stiffer formula. And I have actually been experiencing feathering with recent lip liner formulas, which is like not the point. That lip liner is supposed to help with feathering. So I found these Kokie Velvet Smooth lip liners. They are waterproof formulas. And I remember really liking the retractable Kokie lip liners, the ones where like the pencil was the actual shade that you were getting. I actually don't really remember a lot about this formula though. So I have 3 shades. I have Berry Plum, Rose Berry, and Magenta. Rose Berry might be the best for this look we've got going on. So yeah, this is a sharpenable pencil. Okay, definitely not as creamy as like my Milani lip liners or the new Maybelline ones, but it's still not like tugging at my lips, you know? The pigmentation's great and this shade is beautiful. Man, I gotta find somewhere to go today because I'm basically in full glam. Okay, now I gotta see how well it blends though, because that's the one thing that's good about the creamy formulas. You can really get that gradient look. Okay, it's workable. It's not as easy, but I don't know. I'd rather put in the work now versus trying to clean it up later when it starts feathering. You know what I mean? Yeah, we can get there. We can absolutely get there. You just gotta be a little quick with it. Okay, I found the product I want to top my lips off with, but before I do that, I wanna do a transfer proof test. Clean hand. There's only the slightest ring where my lips were, and that's probably where I built up the liner the most. Okay, let's top this off with the Milani Keep It Full Tinted Plumping Balm. This is in the shade Chili. Ooh, good combo. Okay, here is the final face of Forgotten Products. Say that 5 times fast. So before I share my final thoughts, I wanna see how this lip combo holds up against lunch. But if you've been enjoying this video and you haven't already, I would really appreciate it if you considered subscribing and turning on post notifications by hitting the bell. And if you're already a member of the Slashed Squad, thanks so much for joining me again. Hitting thumbs up on this video helps YouTube show it to more people. Lunch today is beef and broccoli a la Miranda. Still looking pretty good, but I'm gonna finish my lunch. Y'all, there's only the slightest bit of blurring that I'm seeing in the corners from where I've like pulled the fork out of my mouth and it made contact, but it is not migrating outward. As for the rest of the products, I did not expect to have every single one kind of pleasantly surprise me again. I thought that there was gonna be at least one that I would easily declutter. In fact, I thought that it was gonna be the primer, but the way that this foundation is not even starting to crease or crack in my expression lines, honestly, that is something that's worth it to me at this point in my life because that's my biggest makeup gripe and like the thing that I struggle with the most with my makeup right now. So whether I repurchase this is gonna depend on whether I can get similar results with drugstore dupes. I wanna know, have you tried any of these products and do you still use them regularly? Tell me in the comments. Thanks so much for making it to the end of the video. If you wanna keep watching, join me over in this one next. I'll see you over there. Bye.